So that's a short-term goal. There's also a long-term goal of improving the organization. So I actually want to give a negative example of this. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar of this lady, Elizabeth Holmes. So she was the founder of this biotech startup called Theranos. So Theranos was a company that promised to be able to really revolutionize medical testing and preventive medical processes, right? So the idea was that by just taking a small bit of blood, we can do a battery of hundreds, if not thousands of tests to figure out, oh, you're at risk for cancer, you're at risk for diabetes, you're at risk for Parkinson's. Just some really kind of this magic bullet medical screening procedure. Now, if it sounds too good to be true, it is because it was too good to be true. And really, you talk to some of the greatest minds, some of the MD PhDs in the pharmaceutical world, and they would have told you that, yeah, this seems too good to be true. You have these huge labs, which are, the size of probably your house, which are used to do these tests. And so how are we going to do this with just one drop of blood and some small, almost portable handheld device? It just wasn't going to work. And eventually, it became clear to Holmes even that things were going bad. We're not meeting the pace that we wanted to. We're not actually being able to run the tests that we want to. We need more blood to do those tests. The machine isn't airtight, so it's causing problems. So there are problems, right? Now, what Elizabeth Holmes decided to do was just plow ahead, to have this kind of really this just like software approach, which is fake it until you make it. And that's already pretty bad with software, but it's incredibly bad for biotech, because with software, you can really just roll up your sleeves and code, and maybe you have to stay up late a couple of nights, but it's easier to get certain things done. With biotech, I mean, the biology is the biology. There's no faking it until you make it. It either works or it doesn't. So this went as far as Theranos having a contract with Walgreens, and they shipped out their malfunctioning device to 41 Walgreens with the promise that, hey, if you take this test, we're going to be able to diagnose several diseases. And people took this, actually. And imagine, this is mind-blowing that as the CEO, Elizabeth Holmes knew all of this, but decided that, we have to keep the company going. And this is a negative example of a leader who is not actually leading their group to organizational improvement. So all this was actually destroying the organization. She was too short-term focused. We have to get the Walgreens contract. We have to do this. We have to do that. Meanwhile, the whole organization was crumbling, falling apart. There's a toxic culture of people realizing this isn't working, saying we have to slow down, that not being recognized, people leaving. It was a bad show. And Elizabeth Holmes, eventually everyone found out she's no longer the CEO. Theranos doesn't exist. There are actually criminal charges, which she has to deal with. She's being brought to court. So she did not improve the organization of Theranos. There are things that they could have done: slow down the pace, lessen the expectations. There were things that she could have done. She was called the next Steve Jobs, and maybe all of that praise and kind of got to her, and she was afraid to disappoint. But sometimes as a leader, you gotta disappoint.